France, in my opinion, is the most uninformed country amongst the biggest players in AI at the moment. I would say maybe in the world, but no, I suspect like a lot of other countries are not informed. But among the countries that have AI labs, it is the most uninformed about the risks, and it's rather unsurprising because in France you have Yan Lecun, who is revered by everyone. We have a tendency to create national heroes in France, and this is one of them. Quick enough, this committee of artificial intelligence, they produced a report in March that drafts the strategy of France, and this report is just is ridiculous, right? Like the quality of argumentation in this report is really, really low. So we're writing a response to that. We're gonna put in light like the worst parts of the report, all of the contradictions, etc. And I think any reasonable person reading our response will be like, what the fuck? Like, what the fuck is this? This is where I think I'm very optimistic. I try to convey this optimism. I think like the situation is so much simpler than, say, global warming, in the sense that for global warming, every person on this planet is responsible. It's so hard to solve. But this problem is caused by maybe 1,000 people on this planet, and they just need to stop what they're doing. That's it, and problem solved.
Welcome to For Humanity, an AI Risk podcast, episode number 38, France versus AGI. I'm John Sherman, your host. Thank you so much for joining me. For Humanity is the AI Risk podcast for the general public. No tech background required. This podcast is solely about the threat of human extinction from artificial intelligence. Please like, share, subscribe, and donate if you can. Before we get to our interview this week, I want to share one clip with you. This video hit me in a really powerful way this week. Max Wingo, a young guy who is active in Pause AI, posted a 22-minute video to Twitter and YouTube, link in the show notes. It is Max in a parking garage in a lightning storm at 2:30 in the morning, giving a very powerful, heartfelt, intellectually rigorous, but also very approachable speech on AI risk. Here is a little part of it that I will play for you. I encourage you to check out the whole thing and share it. Max's take may really resonate for some people, but it won't if they don't see his video. So please find the link in the show notes and share this.
I want you to think about everybody that you have ever met in your entire life. Your family, those that you love, those that you hold dearest to you, your friends, your outer circle, your coworkers, that person on the bus that you saw for 3 stops and then they got off and you never saw them again. The tired McDonald's employee at the drive-thru at 2 a.m. when you drove through to get McNuggets on your way home. Every single one of those people is going to die. This is not an exaggeration. This is not we all die at some point. This is soon. And it is because of artificial intelligence. I'm telling you this as a scientist, as a physicist, as someone who's been immersing myself as deeply as I can in this field for the last few years of my life, trying desperately to convince myself that this is not the outcome that we are heading towards. Unfortunately, I've failed. I haven't convinced myself. There are no good arguments.
Please check out the link in the show notes to Max's full speech. It is worth your time. I found it to be really, really incredible. So this week we are going to focus on the nation of France for our show. While it may have food, art, and culture unparalleled basically on our planet, France is hosting the critically important third AI Safety Summit in February, following off the first one in England and the second one in South Korea. But in France, they have taken the word safety out of the summit. France, as it turns out, is a very important country for AI risk. There are several frontier AI labs operating in France, but France is one of the very worst countries for AI risk policy. Side note, I am personally going to the AI Summit in Paris in February. I'm not exactly sure what I will be doing there yet, but certainly a large part of it will be jamming a camera and a microphone and hard questions in the faces of the people whose work threatens to kill my kids. I will be there doing that. Bet on it. The clown prince of AI doom is Meta's AI chief scientist, Yan Lecun. He's the worst. He has the ear of everyone in French government and the admiration of the French people. Barf. Ridiculous. And so France has taken the word safety out of the name of the summit. Safety is now just one of 5 things they'll be covering at the summit, and the others are all cotton candy good case bullshit. The third AI summit could wind up being a very bad thing for the AI safety movement. But not everyone in France is going to just let that happen. No way. Today, our interview is with the founder of Pause AI France, Maxime Fournes, who is launching Pause AI France in the coming weeks. Maxime.
Hey.
How are you?
Hey, how are you doing?
Nice. Good. How are you? So great to meet you.
Yeah, great to meet you too.
Awesome. So, I always love just starting out sort of hearing about people's lives and how they got to AI safety and AI risk. So maybe just start out, tell me, where you're from and what was the first time in your life you were leading a normal life and the idea of AI risk became a thing for you. Tell me about that.
Sure. Sounds good. All right. So who am I, basically? I'm French.
Yeah.
I grew up in south of France. I was very good in math. I was passionate about artificial intelligence. I went to engineering school. Then I went to do a Master of Mathematics in Cambridge. And I wasn't sure really what to do with my life at this point. So I went working for finance because that was like the easy option. I specialized in machine learning, or I tried to at least. I was doing like a lot of side projects in machine learning and deep learning. So that was at the very beginning of the deep learning revolution, like around 2012.
Wow.
And I tried to build my own model to solve the game of Go. I remember around 2014. And as I was working on this project, DeepMind announced that they had solved it themselves. So that was a bit of a bummer, but at least I got to play Go, so that was great.
Sure. And what did you think in that moment when they solved it and AlphaGo or cracked the code on the thing?
Yeah, that was amazing. I remember I was amazed. To me, it was like the first hint that it was going to work. Because in order to solve this game, I started playing it myself to understand what it's about, and I realized that it's got nothing to do with chess, right? It's all about creativity. It's all about visualizing complex patterns and stuff that machines just couldn't do before. And then suddenly the fact that a deep neural network could do this, that was for me like the first piece of evidence that it was going to work. So I was very
and just real quick for folks out there who don't know about the Go and AlphaGo situation. So Go is this really old game, right? It's hundreds or maybe 1,000 years old. So very, very old game, very complicated. It's got more potential moves than there are solar systems in the galaxy or something like that. Like there's just
atoms in the universe. Yeah.
Atoms in the universe. There you go. So there are more potential moves in this game than there are atoms in the universe. Humans were at this level for a very long time. We never thought that machines would get there, and then it happened.
Yeah, it happened. It was beautiful. And back then I was like super enthusiastic about AI. I had not thought much about the problems, even though, I was familiar already with the arguments about like problems you get when something becomes more intelligent than humans. But I still felt like it was like 100 years in the future. Like I felt like, okay, we have systems that can sort of go. I think at this point I was thinking, oh, maybe I'm going to live to see it, but maybe not. So I still thought we had like plenty of time to solve all of the thorny issues.
Yeah, and you thought like you would have a lifetime of working in this field and safely working to build this thing towards, wherever it was going, and that would just be your sort of life's work?
Yeah, that was the hope. And also, when that happened with AlphaGo, this is when I decided to leave finance, and I wanted to specialize more into deep learning. So I left the hedge fund I was working for, and I joined a little startup in London where I was, basically building open source machine learning systems and working for companies like building deep learning models for them. I did that for 2 years, and then I came back to hedge funds, but like this time I joined one which is called True Sigma, and I was working on language models there, so it was still aligned with what I wanted to do. I think that's why we were calling them large language models back then, but it was like nothing compared to, of course, the size of what we're doing now. So I did that for a couple of years. I think 4 years. I was leading a data science team there. At the end, that was like 2018 to 2022. And this is when I think the more shocking things starting to happen. I remember when GPT-2, when somebody found out on Twitter that GPT-2 was able to like give you the code for a website if you ask it, and it would work. Like you could even like execute JavaScript inside it. I remember this was a really mind-blowing moment. And this is when I think I started thinking, oh, actually, maybe that's not like 100 years in the future. Maybe it's more like 20, 30 years in the future. So that's I was thinking. Next mind-blowing.
Way back then, way back in 2022.
Yeah, back in the days. So I quit. So in 2022, I quit my job. I was noticing like the rate of progress, and I thought, I wouldn't say I was extremely worried. I was just starting to ask questions, and I was also not sure if I was well positioned. Like I was thinking, okay, I'm gonna take some time to work on my own AI stuff, and take a sabbatical, think about all of this. So I did that, and then GPT-4 came out, and this is when I think it really dawned on me all of a sudden that actually this is not 20 years in the future. It's maybe like next year. It's maybe in 5 years, and and suddenly like I realized how not ready we are. That was. And
let's just sort of tick through your concerns. Like in that moment, you're like, I'm worried about this. What was sort of the list of things you were like, oof, we're not ready for this?
Autonomous agents was my number one concern. So, I already knew that you could like easily, as soon as you get something like a GPT X that works really well, you just need a basic cognitive architecture around it, and you should be able to emulate a kind of a human brain. It's kind of hacky, right? Because the human brain has tons of loops, and the loops are really tightly integrated, like it's neurons looping into neurons. Whereas if you build a autonomous agent the way people are trying to do it at the moment, you basically have the train of thought that is provided by the GPT-X model, and then you build something that reflects on this train of thoughts, and this is the loop mechanism. So it's like you go outside of the neural network, and then you have the loop. But I still feel like it can work. I'm confident that it could work.
Sam Altman talks about agentic AGI coming very soon, that agents are coming. And just so I understand it, and so the people watching and listening understand, is the difference between an agentic AGI and like the current AI models that the agentic version will make decisions autonomously in the world. Like it's not going to check back with humans and be like, hey, should I do this? Should I do this? Should I do this? It's like you say, go do this, and it goes and does any number of steps that are required on its own, making decisions on its own to achieve the goal. Is that what it is?
Yeah. It really depends how you build it, but essentially it's like a human. Like I like that we try to avoid this metaphor, because then you get attacked by people who say, oh, it's nothing like a human. But really, like the best way to think about this is like you have a human stuck in a computer taking decisions, having access to whatever you give it access to. So at the moment, we have decided to give it access to everything, like anything on the internet, terminal, like whatever you want. And it's going to be running and like continuously. And you give it a goal at the beginning, right? Like that's the point, I think. And you just hope that it keeps this goal in mind and tries to do whatever it needs to fill this goal. So some people like implement them and put like safeguards, where it's like you have to have a human that authorizes this action, that action. Other people just don't. Like I think in AutoGPT you have a reckless mode if you want, where you can just let it run whatever you want on your computer. So that's okay because they don't work. But as soon as they start working, my hope is that we have some time before these things start working, because the amount of chaos that is going to be caused when you have these things that are actually competent and that run autonomously online. I saw that you did a podcast with Charbel. I've been working with him quite a lot, and he's been talking a lot about like autonomous replication and adaptation risk.
Yeah,
that's something that scares me a lot as well, and I think we are not very far from that. My estimation is like,
is it going to be like announcing the launch of GPT-5 now with agents, and it's literally just going to be like a part of the new thing, and they're going to let these things loose on the world just without any.
I hope not. I suspect not, because that would be really, really, really dumb, right? I assume that they are aware of this and they are preparing for that, probably testing internally. If they realize that agents work, I expect that they would not release GPT-5. They would release like maybe GPT 4.5, something that's just under that. And then internally, they would start using agents for their own purpose, because these things are going to be so incredibly overpowered. Like there's no point in giving that to every human on this planet. That like, if you have access to this, like you have access to a genie, basically you just use it for yourself.
Right. Is the fear, like if you're like, so let's just say it happens, right? There's GPT-X now with agents. And it's like, you're like, cool. Order me pizza. And you say to the agent, order me pizza. And you haven't specified that you want one pizza. So it sends every pizza on earth to you and uses whatever resources it needs to steal, beg, borrow, to get all the money it needs to send you all the pizzas. It's a pretty dumb example, but just where you give it a simple command and it doesn't understand sort of the parameters of it. And so it does something that you didn't expect at all.
Yeah, that's a possibility. I think it's not the failure mode I'm the most worried about. I feel like this one seems pretty unlikely. I mean, the number one failure mode for me is just misuse. Like somebody, like we have Chaos GPT already. Somebody is going to use that and say, hey, can you just hack every website on Earth or do whatever? That's the one thing.
Right. Or could you say, say to my agent, make me rich. Don't worry about any of the rules.
Yeah, exactly. Like that's like going to be the number one thing that people ask. And like this one is extremely problematic. Like, yeah, this one is a recipe for.
What do you think the agent does? Like, what is a hypothetical course of, I'm the first human with the first agent and I say, go make me rich. What happens next?
It really depends how situationally aware the agent is. Like, and the more it is, the worse it gets for us. If it's not really situationally aware, it doesn't really understand that it's an agent in the world, etc. It's going to go for, I don't know, like, I'm going to create a little business and start to like create a blog, make it paid extra and post stuff. But if it's situationally aware, then like we run into the problems that Charbel was mentioning in your previous podcast of like, oh, of course, if I duplicate myself, I can be more effective. So I'm gonna buy some compute on a cloud provider somewhere. I mean, you need a little bit of money, but I assume that the person who wants this would be okay to provide like some seed funding. Yeah. If not, you just go with the blog route and you create content. The possibilities are really endless. Like you could also, if you are really like completely unscrupulous, like and this agent doesn't have limits, then you can go and exploit humans. So a thing that worries me also is like dating apps. Like there are already bots there, but they're not very good, right? Like it's rather obvious that these are bots. But now we're going to enter a new phase where there's going to be agents on dating apps, and you're just not going to be able to tell that they are not human. So you're going to enter like these relationships, long distance relationships of sorts with things on on dating apps, and you can very easily exploit, like as soon as it gets like into an emotional relationship, you can much more easily exploit the people like that. That's one way. If I was,
and that would be someone who's like creating this fake character on a dating app to get money from other people. They create a relationship, they somehow ensnare them, and then they take advantage of them somehow, probably financially.
So that's even a simpler failure mode of all of these things. People actually doing this like on the get-go. But I was even thinking of an agent. You tell it, okay, do whatever you want to maximize my money, and it's okay for you to break rules. Like the agent could think, okay, I'm going to exploit humans. What's the best way to do this? Well, dating apps is fairly simple. There's lots of things like this to exploit. So these are all very interesting things that could happen as soon as things start working.
Okay, and so now back to your story, you are working full-time on AI risk now. Is that right?
Yes, I work 70 hours a week unpaid for Pose AI, France, and Global. Yes.
Wow. First of all, thank you. Thank you for, that level of sacrifice and commitment. That is really impressive.
Thanks. I don't see it as sacrifice myself. I just see it as...
Oh, sure it is. I mean, you could be spending 70 hours. Yeah, that is true. It is common sense. I will give you that. But you could certainly be spending those 70 hours or big parts of them doing less useful, less helpful things. So I'm grateful anytime anyone has like literally dropped everything to work on this.
I mean, it's always an interesting question. It's like, okay, what do I do? Like, if I actually believe that we're fucked in like 3-5 years, you could just be like, I'm just going to enjoy my life and enjoy the rest of it.
Right. Go to the beach. Happens.
Or you can try to fix it. And I think people have just a tendency to underestimate massively how much impact they can have on the world. So I realized that there was a problem. I spent 6 months researching, is there really a risk in AI or not? And I took the approach of, let's try to prove that there is no risk. So I looked at all of the arguments of the people who say there is no risk, like Yan Lecun and all of these people.
Yeah.
And I realized there is nothing, right? It's like there's like, it's ridiculous. Like one side has like this like 10 years of research on the topic, say like, oh yeah, massive risk in every direction. And the other side just says, oh, this is science fiction, or oh yeah, but these models, they're gonna plateau, right? They're not gonna get much better, and they put 100% certainty on this. Yeah.
And the best part is the people who call what we believe science fiction believe that we should accept a future where there's 90% unemployment and some sort of techno utopia, and we do a transition that doesn't kill us all to get there. That's not science fiction.
Yeah, that's just like
it's like what? Like so you're saying our belief is science fiction and yours is like just 3 rings beyond. Like what are we even talking about? It's amazing to me how weak the counter arguments are. I know at one point I was very disappointed to find that out.
I have a pet theory on this, but maybe we can talk about it later. I feel like this is all tied to existential dread, like fear of death. It makes people who are otherwise very rational suddenly become very irrational because they've not like faced their own fear of death, I suspect. But anyway, so yes, there is a... So
no, that's a good area to get into. That's a really, I feel like, what percent of the world knows about this problem? Less than 1%?
I mean, people have the correct intuition, but I think they don't have the right idea of time scales. That's the big problem. Like I think 60% of the population gets it because it's not that complicated. Like, oh, you create something more intelligent than us, and that's probably dangerous. But like people don't realize that this is coming soon. That's the big problem.
Totally.
And the people who get it, very, very few. I don't know, maybe
Yeah.
0.01% of the population.
So tell me, in your 70 hours a week, what are you doing? I know you are about to launch something big and exciting. I want to talk about that. And tell me, how do you spend your time?
So, well, I'm the CTO of Pose AI Global. It's not like we have a massive software operation, but given my background, it makes sense. And I'm just basically part of the leadership there. And I'm launching the French branch. Well, the French branch already exists, but we're going to do an official launch event in September. And we are working on a first initiative, which takes a lot of work, but I think it's very important. But for that, you have to understand the situation in France. And I think, again, Charbel has already covered it quite a bit, but I can give you maybe
let's
more,
get into it.
straightforward angle.
No, I'm certainly interested in how it's going in France, and certainly how the third AI summit is going to go. And, is Yan Lecun going to be successful in his effort to remove safety from the AI safety summit? But let's just talk generally about France. What is France's outlook on AI, and why is it maybe, a very important player in this?
Yeah, so France, in my opinion, is the most uninformed country amongst the biggest players in AI at the moment. I would say maybe in the world, but no, I suspect like a lot of other countries are not informed. But among the countries that have AI labs, it is the most uninformed about the risks, and it's rather unsurprising because in France you have Yan Lecun, who is revered by everyone. We have a tendency to create national heroes in France, and this is one of them. So nobody thinks twice about the fact that he is the chief scientist of one of the companies that has the worst reputation in the world, that has been responsible for a genocide, that for Cambridge Analytica, etc. And
right, he's running the original misaligned technology, social media. He's the chief scientist of the misaligned tech we have.
Yeah, so that's the thing. So there's this guy, and he's extremely influential in France. Like, he speaks directly to the president. He's part of the committee for AI that decides the strategy of the country. And so I think that's just what's happening in France. I mean, there's also, it's compounding with the fact that we have Mistral with Arthur Mensch, who is also like a famous risk denier. And they are he's also part of the committee. So yeah, we have this committee, 13 people who decide the strategy AI in France. Amongst them, you have Yan Lecun, Arthur Mensch, and Cédric O, the guy who tried to sabotage the EU AI Act. So I don't know if anyone has covered this story on your podcast before, but basically to give a short
version. No, not really. We haven't gotten into it. Please.
Oh yeah. So, well, there was so the EU was finishing to draft the regulation project, and I think the day before they had to give their last draft. I mean, I don't know the exact details, but suddenly there was a change of mood in France, and France said, "Oh no, we can't have this." And when you look at what happened, basically this guy Cédric O, who was I'm going to struggle to translate that. He was working for the government. He was the Secretary of State in charge of digital affairs, something like this. And back in the days, he was pushing for more regulation, etc. And then he quit his job and he started working for Mistral as a lobbyist, right? And then suddenly his stance was like, "Oh, we need to deregulate." So he used all of his connections in the French government to basically say, "Oh, we can't have these regulations. They're really bad for country, for innovation." And suddenly France changed its mind. They timed it, especially crucially, just the day before there was a big deadline, so that it was maximal sabotage. But hopefully a bunch of people got together and fixed that. So I mean, I think that still diluted the AI Act quite a bit, but not as bad as it could have been. But you have a situation where you have a small group of people. I think at the time Mistral was maybe 4 or 5 people who, for maximizing their profits, decided to impact a piece of regulation that is going to have an effect on like 350 million people and basically just pretend there's less risk than there actually are. Yeah, that's really outrageous. So this person is for some reason, in spite of this being like a big scandal, I mean, it was covered by a few specialized newspapers. Unfortunately, it didn't make the big headlines, but still, he is part of the committee, so he gets to have a say into what the strategy.
Is there anyone on the committee who views risk properly?
There's no one who, there are some people who we don't know the opinion of when it comes to like existential risk or catastrophic risk. I don't think there's anyone that has expressed that there is any sort of catastrophic risk from AI. But some people are less well known than others, and I think that like what I suspect is that like Yan Lecun has such a big name that he has a massive influence over this commission. And the others, like even if there was one or two people in this commission that
right
would disagree,
bully them down and get whatever.
And I know,
anyway.
I mean, I know from inside, I've got some inside information that some people in this committee, I'm not going to say their name, have expressed that they are not very happy with this situation, that they feel like the industry has too much of a weight inside it. Which is that's the case, but
so let me ask you this. I was going to say, we think about China and the U.S. all the time, in this race condition, and China's maybe behind us, maybe not behind us, whatever it is. Talk about the danger of another country like France, who could do the things that everyone is so concerned about happening in China and the U.S., completely independently of China and the U.S. and cause the nightmare scenario that we're all worried about outside of the biggest two players.
Yeah, that's a big concern. I mean, I don't know how likely it is that France will develop its AI industry to the point of being a real problem, but that's definitely what we are trying to do at the moment. So I feel like the strategy of the country is like we need to invest more in AI, and we need to deregulate so that the other players come to France because they can see this place as a safe haven for regulations. And so, we are worried that if there was an international treaty that was offered, was put on the plate, France I think France at the moment would not sign it, right? If that
even if US and China said yes, France would be out.
I mean, I can't know for sure, but that's definitely the vibe that they are giving, because they are saying that this is all bullshit. There is no risk. So, I wouldn't be surprised if that was the case. That's really bad. But also there is the Action Summit. I mean, like we are already on track to try and sabotage AI safety in France, right? Like we just there has been some internal voices that have said, we need to change the track of this summit and speak a lot less about safety and more about action, like investments, how to promote open source, things like that. So that's becoming a big problem.
That's terrible. I mean, like the first one in Bletchley Park was called the AI Safety Summit, right? Like the whole thing was an AI Safety Summit. The second one in South Korea, I don't think it had safety in the name, and this French one certainly does not have. And now safety is one of like 5 things that are being talked about.
Yeah, the 5S. That's funny because like there's, I think they've called that the 5S, and when you look at them, none of these S is actually safety. It's like I don't know what this is, but that's pretty bad. But the thing is, no, sorry, go ahead.
No, please go. I mean, it's so bad. Like if the risks are going up and the role of safety at the summits is going down, that's fucking terrible.
So I'm optimistic. I think that like people will come to reason eventually. I just hope that it's going to be quick enough. So the reasons is like, first, there is a massive disparity of understanding of the situation between France and the other countries. And I don't think that's a stable situation. Like the people at the UK AI Safety Institute, the people who organized the first safety summit, at the moment they are they are applying pressure on France. They are like, what the fuck are you guys doing?
They are.
So
Okay, good.
that's one part for the instability, but also like just the truth, like the arguments that these people are using are ridiculous. And I feel like you can navigate this situation only for so long with lies, right? At some point, when it's like a very scientific topic like this, like I have faith in the fact that truth will be uncovered, and that's what we're working on at Pose AI France at the moment. So, like this committee of artificial intelligence, they produced a report in March that drafts the strategy of France, and this report is just is ridiculous, right? Like the quality of argumentation in this report is really, really low. So we're writing a response to that. We're gonna put in light like the worst parts of the report, all of the contradictions, etc. And I think any reasonable person reading our response will be like, what the fuck? Like, what the fuck is this report? I can give you some pearls if you want. There is a section which is called "Should You Be Afraid of AI?" It's like maybe 2 pages long. The first word is no, and followed by "but we need to stay vigilant," something like that. And then like the first page is a really bad analogy with electricity at the beginning of the century. So it develops this analogy, even puts like a little funny picture of someone scared of electricity, and says like, yeah, at the beginning of the 20th century, people were really afraid of electricity, but it turned out okay. Then it talks about like 2 types of risks that are definitely not catastrophic, right? I don't remember, but something like bias and discrimination. I mean, that's a big risk, right? I don't want to downplay it, but then it has like 1 sentence, I think, about the most catastrophic risks, and just says like, we're gonna just stay alert, something like that. And that's it. That's the way the most catastrophic risks are treated in this report. It even misquotes the CIIS statement. Like it like confuses between the CIIS statement and the FLI letter, like post-giant AI experiments. It's confused between the two, and it says it's only 60 people who have signed it, whereas it's 33,000 in reality for the post-giant AI experiments. So that's the quality, right, of the work they've done. That's fun. Like when you look at the job section, I love it. Job section of this report is 3 pages. Like what is, like they ask, okay, could there be a risk for jobs? They have 2 approaches. When you read each approach, it says that it's inconclusive, but they managed to spin it into AI will have a positive effect on the economy. And you can read this and reread it again and to be like, but you just like said this is inconclusive. And then in the next paragraph, you say, so we've shown that AI will have a positive effect on jobs and the economy. That's another big one. Oh yeah, another amazing one. They assume that the progress will stop. So basically the whole thing just looks at the current models and has the implicit assumption everywhere that this is it. Like this is not going to get any better. So that's, of course, you get some conclusions.
Wow. And this is the government report.
Yep. That's 137 pages long.
Brutal. Here's the thing. Like, so Lecun uses the lamest, most infuriating counterpoints when he talks about how AI is like the invention of the typewriter or the printing press or jazz or video games. Like those are literal things I've seen him point to. And it's like, no, dude, this is what I'm using lately. It's like the earth was here with no life on it for hundreds of millions of years. Then we had biological life. Now we are birthing by our own choice, digital life. Like it is cold rock, squishy living things, machine living things.
Yeah. It's really hard to counter Yan Lecun because he's not trying to make sense. That's the problem. It's like, I mean, I don't want to quote any politician because I don't want to make this thing a partisan thing, but like there's a new trend now in politics of just like bombarding lies, just like saying lie after lie after lie. And of course, it's hard to debunk everything. Like if you're faced with someone who just bombards you with lies, it's really hard. And when someone like this,
and it's not even a new trend. It's straight Goebbels, right? It's like say the lie loud, repeat the lie, and people will believe it.
I mean, it's not necessarily just lies. It's going to be also just logical fallacies. Just, you know, if you just say, oh, this is science fiction, so this is not true, and you frame that like really nicely, like people are going to believe you because, you know, because not everyone is an expert in rhetoric and understanding when somebody is bullshitting or not. And also because he has this expertise, he can obviously like lose people in the expert jargon. He can say, oh, these are stochastic errors, so not dangerous. They just predict the next word, you know, like stuff that the common human will not be able to understand that this is bullshit.
Yeah. I mean, the craziest thing about this whole thing is that there are really no adults in the room. Like the adults in the room include people like Yan Lecun, who is, do you think he honestly believes what he says, or do you think he knows better in his heart of hearts?
I feel like this is coming back to what I was saying earlier about existential fear, and I think in general, people are not very rational. Even scientists, even like I've seen very, very smart people who are extremely good at math, who can still, when it comes to being faced with a new problem or something outside of their expertise, suddenly become very irrational. The thing is, like, you have a tendency in general to wish for something to happen the way you want it to happen, and then do rationalization. So you find the best explanations that fit your way you want the world to be. So, I mean, I suspect that that this is what's happening there. Like, he has a very comfortable position. I mean, when you look at his story, this looks like someone who was just trying to maximize money. I mean, he's famous for like there's this interview when he was younger where it was a conference, I think, where he's talking about something he's been working on, and somebody in the public asks him, but like, this has obvious military applications, and I don't want to misquote, something like, you're funded by the military. Do you think this is a problem? And his reply is, when somebody offers you money, you take it, right? So I think that's probably like symptomatic of something. But basically, you have someone who is like chief scientist at Meta. He's, from what I've gathered, he's not been doing much research work anymore for a long time, because like when you're at this kind of position in a company like Meta, like what you're doing is lobbying politics. You're not researching. He's got his name on like 80 research papers in 1 year. Like, this is just means like it stamps his name.
This dude spends clearly like 3 hours a day on Twitter. Yeah, I don't know how many people who are doing that level of important work who spend that much time, trolling on Twitter.
I think he's sincere in a way, right? Like, but I think most people are sincere. Like, even like the worst people on this planet, I'm sure everyone is the hero in their own head, and but you have to, like, people should have a critical eye. Like, you should compare him and Geoffrey Hinton. You have like one person who has quit his job, like just a very highly paid job, to raise the alarm. And on the other way, like, you have somebody who's paid millions by Meta and saying there is no risk and using like ridiculous arguments and attacking people all the time.
Right. And it's like, what are the incentives for why these people are saying their things, and include those incentives in what they're saying, and it becomes really clear, I feel like. So let's talk about this. At Pause AI, you have been leading the onboarding team, getting new people in. So, I've been saying for a couple of weeks now, maybe a month or two, that I think Pause AI is going to be the largest mass movement in human history. And we are obviously in the first minutes of it. But bringing new people on is massively important to what we're trying to do, because someone who comes to Pause AI and actually gets involved in activism is like a level beyond someone who is aware of the problem. There's someone now who is like evangelizing in their community, of making other people aware of it, spreading the word, which is, what I am most concerned with. Like, my primary goal is to just spread the word, like try to take people who are unaware of it in the general public and make them aware of it. So tell me about the onboarding process. Have you seen the numbers of people increasing, and how's it going?
Yeah, we had fluctuations. It's a little bit more quiet right now than it was a couple of weeks ago, but overall, we've seen an increase. So I think I've not checked the numbers, but last time I checked, we were having maybe 70 new people per week joining our community, and among
That's
these,
awesome. So 70 new people coming to Pause AI, getting onboarded.
Well, not
every
really,
week.
because like a lot of people are just joining for participating in the community. Like some people are even against Pause AI; they just want to see what people are talking about.
Okay.
Like our Discord has become like a big part of the AI safety community. There's a lot of conversation about
I'm in there a lot.
there. So yeah, I think that among these 70, you have only maybe 10 to 15 a week who actually want to become volunteers. So there we have crafted a little onboarding process where, so first they indicate where they want to, when they join, if they want to become a volunteer or not. And if they do, we have members of our onboarding team that are going to go and chat with them, try to understand what are the skills, what they want to do, and we try to put them in a team. Right? We have a lot of different teams working on all sorts of different things. If somebody is a good writer, maybe they can go to the press team. If somebody is good at communication, like we want him to be in the recruitment team. So there's a job for everyone, right? Anybody can come and just contribute. So that's the role of the onboarding team, being able to route people towards where they can maximize our efforts.
Right, because it's all volunteers and everybody has a job and some skills they have, specialized to them. And so a part of making it work optimally for Pause AI is to get them routed to where their skills can be put to the best use.
Exactly. And that's very challenging. I mean, I've never worked with a community of volunteers before, so I had to learn so many things on the go. And like there are a lot of challenges working with volunteers. It's also extremely interesting. So we are learning all the time, trying to refine our process so that we offer something. I think we're trying to really build the culture at the moment. And one thing that is really core to our culture is we are not here as individuals. We are here for the mission. We are here, like, if somebody is better than me at my job and wants to replace me, then just please go ahead, take my spot, because I don't care. I'm not here for politics. I'm not even paid. Like, just please.
Right. I'll find somewhere else to plug in. Yeah, that's great. So what, I don't know, if someone is watching this and they care about these issues, but they just haven't reached the point where they're willing to say like, I want to raise my hand and help. What do you say to them? How do you sort of like convince people to get off the couch, get off their keyboard and like actually do something?
But what are the reasons why people would not join Pause AI, right? So either they think there is no risk at all, or like the one of the big reasons is like people will think that we have more time than we do. So I always recommend people to really get informed and shape, like have an opinion. Like lots of people that don't really have an opinion on this topic. They say, oh yeah, AI is dangerous, but I don't really know when it's going to come. And so, I'm not going to spend, but this is a really important question. Even if you don't believe in like catastrophic risks, just in terms of, is a machine going to be able to do my job in 3 years? That seems like an important question to ask if you want to plan anything in your life. And unfortunately, like when you start looking at it, the answer seems to be there is a very high probability that in 3 years, whatever your job is on this planet, there is going to be a machine that does it better than you. So for career planning, I would recommend this. And then once people get an opinion on timelines, and once you look at it, like you can realize that, maybe there's like 50% chance of something happening in less than 4 years or something like that. Then the next blocker, I think, is say like despair, something like, oh, well, then we're fucked. So what's the point? And this is where I think I'm very optimistic. I try to convey this optimism. I think like the situation is so much simpler than say global warming, in the sense that for global warming, like every person on this planet is responsible. It's so hard to solve. But this problem is caused by maybe 1,000 people on this planet, and they just need to stop what they're doing. That's it, and problem solved. That's like the key is like as soon as a certain threshold of people understand what's happening, the problem is solved, right? You'd like feel like key people in the U.S. government if they understood what's happening.
I had this conversation yesterday with my mother, and she was like giving me the like, well, what can we do about it? What are we supposed to do about it? And I was like, there's no way 1,000 people are going to decide the fate of 8 billion people. No fucking way. Like,
yeah,
not too.
I mean,
it just seems so crazy.
Yeah, and as I said earlier, like people can have a massive impact on this world. You really have to, and like there's a thing, like I think our culture makes us believe that we are just passengers here, just sort of floating around and in like a big current. But that's probably a little bit on purpose, because I think if too many people understand that they can actually change the world, then maybe it's not the best for the people who are in charge. I don't know. There's just theories.
I love that.
I love that. The thing is, you can do so much. Like, I don't know. I created Pose AI in France, like the French branch. I don't know, like 3 months ago. After a month, we already had 10 people. Now we're about 20, and we are gonna organize a press conference in September. Hopefully, we make the headlines. Like, this is just
totally
a couple of months.
Like anybody can do anything. Anybody can do anything. Yeah. I shoot these shows on Saturdays at my office, and like I'm sitting here in the office by myself. Like I could be home messing with my yard, dealing with the dogs, whatever. Like anybody can carve time out of their life and have an impact and do something. Like we don't have big numbers like a lot of shows out there, but we're coming up on 5,000 subscribers. And like I would have driven 3 hours to stand on a street corner and talk to one person about this. And now every week, 5,000 people at least gets in their feed and gets to other people. And like, you can do something.
And that's there's a domino effect as well. It's like, you don't need to have like specific skills, or if you can just recruit someone who's better than you, just like find one person, suddenly you've doubled your output. And if this person starts recruiting more people, then this is where you start the domino effect. That's the most important thing. I think that's at the core of Pose AI strategy at the moment. We need to enable this compound growth, like this exponential growth now, because this is how we get, right? We need to touch as many people as possible.
I mean, obviously they have a huge money advantage and lobbying and all that stuff. But if you think about it, this just occurred to me right this second. There's only 1,000 of them, or less than 1,000 of them. I think now this is horrific, but I think there's probably maybe less than 1,000 of us too. I don't know, a few thousand, 10,000. I don't know how many people in the world are knowledgeable at a base level and, I would say properly concerned about AI risk. It's probably more than 1,000. It's probably several thousand. But if it was 1,000 of them versus 1 million of us, or 10 million of us, then it starts to get interesting.
That's the thing. I think there is already 10 million. There's a dynamic that is really perverse for us. It's the fact that like social norms prevent you from talking about this at the moment. So I know many of my friends who are were concerned, but they just couldn't talk to anyone about it. And now they can talk to me, and they realize, oh wow, actually this is, and like we need to find these people like this, and also these people need to. It's a kind of courage that is really tough to muster, right? Like going against your social circle. That's definitely one of the worst nightmares for most people. But that's where we need to play a role, right? We need to make it okay for everyone to talk about this. And I feel like as soon as it becomes okay for everyone to talk about this, then suddenly like people wake up and are like, oh yeah, actually I've been, like the people will realize too that their friends were also thinking the same thing, but just didn't know that it was okay to talk about it. And so I hope we can create this dynamic soon enough.
That is amazing. That would be amazing. I think that people are going to be so angry. I think that the amount of seriously, like I was at a baseball game and I was looking at the crowd and I was like, look at all these people standing up and yell. They're wearing their shirts and they're yelling stuff about a little ball being hit around a yard. Imagine if they found out that there's 1,000 people coming to kill them and their children within the next 5 years. Like, that stadium could quite easily, I think, turn and morph that energy into rage directed at the people behind this. I see that turn happening. It's like, when everybody finds out what's really going on, it's not going to be like, oh, that's interesting. It's going to be like, are you fucking kidding me?
Yeah. I feel like I felt so much rage that I've become a little bit insensible to it now. But I totally agree. But it's completely like, this is a normal response to something like this happening. Like, people are playing Russian roulette with you, with your family, with everyone you know. And like, what's the normal reaction to this? It's, yeah.
Yeah. And like, let's be like explicitly clear, like Russian roulette, like someone is holding a gun with live ammunition to your children's heads. Like, that is what's happening. It's at that fucking level, and people need to understand this. This is not, this is not something that some people will get out of. Nobody gets out of this.
It reminds me when I was coming back from the post-AI retreat. So we organized a retreat in the UK recently to just work intensely on preventing this horrible future from happening. And when I was coming back, I was sitting in the train next to a child. She was like 13 years old or something. And I couldn't stop thinking that, like, I was thinking, what is the future of this child? Like, is she going to get to grow up, have a job or have a nice life? And it's fairly obvious that probably not. Like, even if the worst scenario doesn't come to play, like what job are you going to do exactly? If like, and I started crying in the train. I remember. Yeah, this is a really fucked up situation, but we're gonna fix that. Yeah, we're gonna fix that.
Hell yeah. We have to. Like, I say, like, there are 117 billion people that live before us on this planet, and like, they sweated and cried and got diseases and died and cared to push the ball an inch forward so we can have the stuff we have now. Like, we are the beneficiaries of the sacrifices of our ancestors, and our generation is going to be the one that drops the ball and just blows the whole fucking thing up to make money that we can't even spend once we're blown up. What?
Well, yeah. I mean, I'm going to take a little bit of a devil's advocate here.
Please,
I feel like there are some people, there's a lot of people who I know extra who work there and are actually utopists, right? Not doing it for the money, but just like authentically thinking that this is the best for humanity and AI is going to solve every problem in the world. And I relate because I've been there as well for most of my life, actually. And this is, I think this is symptomatic of not having thought hard enough about the problem, and also bias, like just wanting the world to be the way you think it should be. Because as soon as you start like working through the details of what would happen, you realize that there is not actually a single scenario you can even think of where this plays out well for humanity. Like, nobody, as far as I'm aware, nobody has ever been able to come up with a scenario where super intelligent machines coexist with humans, and this is going well for humans. And I think there was even like a prize that would be given for somebody who can come up with a story, like a science fiction story that is convincing in that regard. So that's a big flaw with the YouTube.
Totally. I mean, here's one. So this is a good one. You use that. I was talking with Jeremy Harris of Gladstone AI yesterday, and he was like, so ask people this. Ask the good case, the AGI accelerationists this. We invent AGI. What happens the next minute, the next hours, the next day, the next week? what literally happens. And he is like what people at Google DeepMind will tell you, that he's like had a senior scientist at Google DeepMind tell him that the next day the UN will step in and equitably and evenly distribute the AGI to every citizen of the world.
I don't see how this could play out otherwise. And it's...
Of course that will, right. Obviously that will happen. Just, each human will be given their section of the AGI within a few hours.
Not even sure the things.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, so what happens, it seems to me, is AGI, somebody comes up with it and then it gets really nasty really quickly. Like if it's a U.S. company or the U.S. military that comes up with it, what does China do? What happens in the sort of at the international political level when someone says, hey, I have a permanent advantage that's going to give me, ability to dominate my rivals forever?
Yeah, that's not going to play out nicely. Although I suspect that we will not get to this point. I feel more and more that we are not going to get to AGI because something catastrophic is going to happen before that. So, for example, the scenario of automated replication and adaptation, or just even like recently. So there was an article that I read that was really interesting that looks at prediction markets and tries to predict like what is going to happen with just machines that can produce code from just a feature description. Like so it looks like we are going from machines that assist you for writing code to a machine that you can describe a feature and it does changes in your code base, and you have a new feature rather autonomously, right? And that's before you get autonomous agents. It could happen before that. Suddenly it changes completely the pace of innovation. Like that would mean that like software developers are suddenly like 10 times more fast, 10 times quicker. That's already a very strange world, and I'm not sure exactly what would happen. Like we would see probably already a lot of power concentration, a lot of wealth redistribution. And I suspect that like autonomous agents would like follow suit very quickly, because if you improve the pace at which you can build software, just like building software is what's necessary for building these cognitive architectures. You don't need to train new, better models, etc. You just need to have better like how do you say, like scaffolding around the models. So I suspect like soon you arrive at the point where you have like the autonomous hackers, stuff like that. And at this point, the world becomes very strange, and I'm not sure how it plays out.
And so that's a world where there could be like a pre-AGI warning shot that disrupts everything and really incentivizes, wakes everyone up and makes a pause a lot closer to reality.
But you have to hope that it just disrupts everything, because like I think there's a fair chance that it does a lot more than disrupt everything. Say that you have like the autonomous replication agents that flourish on the internet exponentially. Basically, I mean, a reasonable outcome is just destroys the internet, right? Like every machine gets infected, or like the ones that don't. And this is a scenario that is, I don't know if like many people realize what would happen if you were to turn off the internet all of a sudden, like just like take humanity offline, see what happens. I think this is worse than anything that has ever happened to humanity in terms of degree of severity of the event. I suspect that like hundreds of millions of people would die. You disrupt, like you just cut down like the food chain, I mean, like the chaos that would, like we've seen the chaos at the beginning of the COVID pandemic, where people would rush to stores to try to grab, like do everything for themselves, their family first. So you'd see that happening, and then you don't have any coordination between humans anymore, because we've, at least in the Western world, we are completely reliant on internet for all sorts of coordination. The time it would take for replacing the coordination that we have with the internet with something else, that would be pretty bad.
It seems so obvious. That seems so obvious. I've never thought about it before in my entire life, like really just like that. I've thought about 0 day, where if it's like a 0 day in my head is where everybody wakes up and all the accounts are at zero. Your bank account, your every account, everywhere on earth is at zero.
Interesting. Well, that would also be the case, right? Because everything, like all of the banking system is
right. It goes away.
online.
If it doesn't turn on, it's essentially at zero. But what would really freak people out is if they logged into their banking app and they actually saw shit zeroed out. They would be like, there'd be riots in the streets.
I feel like I will be a little bit reassured when I hear that it's not just me, but like the people around me as well. Be like, oh,
right. You were like, okay, I'll refresh and it'll come back any second.
Yeah.
Wow. A no internet warning shot where it literally, and are you thinking like this would permanently take out the internet? Like we would not be able to resurrect it?
I mean, it's really very speculative. It all depends what happens. I mean, we don't have any kind of defense mechanism at the moment against like agents. Like imagine a piece of software that is better than a human to create new software and hack things and spreads and like duplicates itself. Like there's no response mechanism to that. So the thing with the internet is that you cannot actually turn it off. You cannot disconnect. You cannot so one thing we should do to prepare against this scenario is think of like compartmentalization mechanisms, like being able to take off like a chunk of the internet so that like quarantine it when something like this happens. But it doesn't exist at the moment. And also like the internet is really just all of the machines that are connected to it. So say that you have to send the message basically to everyone on this planet to just unplug your Wi-Fi so that this thing cannot spread anymore. Right, it's not possible, and then it still continues to exist in every machine that it has infected. As soon as one of them becomes connected to the internet again, it can start spreading again. I mean, that's not. Yeah, I don't know how to deal with this. I'm not qualified for that.
I've had anyone is. This is a crazy vision. So in Baltimore, I live in Baltimore, Maryland, in the U.S., and we have an inner harbor that's kind of like a V. In the center of the city. It's a picturesque zone. And I've had this vision of like everybody taking their phones and their computers and like throwing them in the harbor, just like trying to kill this thing, make it stop before it keeps spreading.
I don't think that would really work. But I mean, if this is what happens, I think there's a decent chance that it doesn't like actually take over humanity or anything. Like I think we can reach a level where this technology is destructive enough, but not smart enough that it actually understands that there is a world outside of a virtual world, and hopefully. So you just have a reset of the internet event. Kind of solves the problem with AI, but like at what cost? Quite a big cost.
And AI would not at this point be smart enough to know that like it needs the internet to survive and spread and somehow like try to protect it or make it so that it could only use it and humans could not?
I mean, I hope not. Like, I don't.
Right. I know it's all
we don't really know, right? It's all speculative. So I mean, yeah, that's what worries me is like more concretely, like GPT-5. What if like GPT-5, you can plug it into an agent, starts working. So OpenAI would not release it, but I'm also more worried about other people, like people at Meta, really don't seem to be extremely naive with respect to AI risk. And like, I would be very surprised if OpenAI releases a version of GPT-5 that can create this kind of damage. But I wouldn't be as surprised if Meta just releases like a new version of Llama, the open source model, that is like GPT-5 capabilities without even like really checking what it can do. And like 2 months later, somebody manages to get the proper scaffolding in place, and suddenly you have these kind of agents. So yeah, that to me is probably the most scary scenario.
Wow.
In the immediate future. And I'm not even talking about like long-term future or anything like this. I feel like there's a decent chance that like a GPT-5 level model enables these things. Like if scaling laws continue, there was just a new paper on scaling laws, by the way. I don't know how I don't remember what it's called, but it's just like showing more evidence that these are likely to continue. I hope they stop.
Yeah.
Maybe they continue.
Yeah. Let me two questions to just sort of wrap it up. One is on that. Like you hear a lot from sort of Gary Marcus types on Twitter, and you know that it's slowing down. That they have hit some bottlenecks they haven't told us about, and AI frontier development is actually slowing down. So that's a reason to, not be concerned. Jeremy Harris told me yesterday that that is not the attitude at OpenAI or Google DeepMind internally, that internally they do not view themselves as slowing down at all. But what do you, when you read that on out there that, it's slowing down and we're 50, 100 years away from AGI?
I don't see any evidence of that. It's like, I've looked at all of these arguments, but there's nothing. People just look at the fact that, we have not had like GPT-5 and it's been like 2 years, a year, something. But the thing is, like, the scaling laws just tell you if you train a model that is bigger, you get something better. People have not trained much bigger models since GPT-4. Actually, we don't know the exact size, but like everything has been coherent with the scaling laws so far. Like you have Claude 3.5, which is actually even a bit smaller, that they managed to find architectures that are more efficient and is better than GPT-4. So the only moment when we're going to have evidence is when somebody actually trains the next generation, and these generations of models, they scale exponentially, right? Like, so GPT-5 is going to be 10 times bigger as GPT-4. It takes a lot of resources. Like, people are just like this. People have decided, screw global warming. We're just going to like build massive data centers and put all of our electricity in that, and we're going to build these huge things. So once we see like the next size of model, we will know if the scaling laws have stopped working. But I mean, I wouldn't bet on this because like so far they've been holding up like quite nicely. There's the problem with data, but people are finding ways around this. So I've not found any, like, people have managed to craft semi-convincing conceptual arguments that would explain why these models would stop working. So Gary Marcus, he has a lot of these, Yan Lecun as well. But I'm more an empiricist. I say, like, show me the data first that shows that they have stopped working, and I believe you. That would be my stance on this. So no, I don't think there's any kind of evidence. And also, very important, these people don't have a probabilistic approach. Like, please, if the stakes are this high, give me some kind of likelihood estimation, or like, don't just tell me, the models are going to plateau, because like, okay, maybe you have
by how much,
this, maybe
when,
80% certainty, or just like, how much certainty do you have into this? Because consider what happens if they don't. Like, okay, say that you're very confident that these models will plateau. So maybe like 80% confidence. That still leaves a 20% chance that you'd be wrong and they don't. And you have very, very powerful models very quickly. Like, these people don't talk about probabilities. That's very disturbing. I don't understand why. Like, they just say, no, they won't, they will stop. Like, this is like, I've never been wrong in my life. And also they have a history of being wrong with their predictions very often. So you could look at this and be like, maybe.
Yeah, like, why should you believe me? I said so.
Yeah,
perfect.
Because it's same people who have been saying that LLMs would not be able to do X, replace X by anything you want, and then like the next month the LLMs are able to do this. So like, in terms of calibration, we are not at like the best. It's like, well, yeah.
No, Lecun is famous for that, with just being wrong, looking backwards. So, Maxime, tell me, I always like to wrap it up with something hopeful. Tell me, what makes you optimistic and hopeful as you look at all this stuff?
Well, I think people can only sustain lies for so long, and light is going to be cast on that, I hope, very soon. I think that some key people need to be convinced and everything changes. There are some very, very decent points of action in the system. Imagine if Sam Altman suddenly like wakes up and is like, I'm actually going to try and save the world. I'm going to announce, actually, let's stop everything we are doing. OpenAI is dangerous. I think this would make massive waves and has the potential to change everything. Of course, we're not going to convince Sam Altman, but there are key people like this that just need to change their mind, and everything can happen. So this is one vector of action. Everyone who is watching this video can join Pause AI and have a massive impact. Like,
absolutely.
Like, not kidding. I mean, it's of course it's not the massive impact in the scale of the world. Maybe one individual is not going to change everything, but like, the thing that you can do can send like ripples everywhere. Like, just come and join the onboarding team, like onboard one people in OpenAI, recruit people, start the domino effect. So you just need to push the first domino. Yeah,
totally.
Sort out this mess.
Totally. Absolutely. We have no fucking alternative but to sort out this mess. We didn't make this mess, but it is what it is. And like, there's nobody on earth who gets off on this, you know, without being affected by it. So there should be nobody on earth that doesn't feel like they should be active on this. Like, you know, this is the cause of all of our lifetime. This is the cause of our species' existence.
Yeah.
Like, this is it.
Yep, that's very weird to be born at this point in time in human history.
So weird.
It's amazing.
So weird. It's yet another thing that makes you be like, oh, this can't be real. Like, right? Like, we're potentially the last humans. It seems so outlandish, but it is so unavoidably, as you say, true.
Yeah.
Like, they're, you know, these are facts, not opinions.
Yep, you have to look at these.
Yeah, awesome. Maxime, I appreciate your time so much. I appreciate what you're doing. You know, best of luck in all your efforts in getting things going in France. Those 70 hours a week is so impressive. Please keep it going. And, you know, there's you, there's me, there's everybody else. And let's hope next week there's a whole nother raft of people, and then another one and another one and another one. And we'll just keep building this thing.
Yeah, we will. This will work out.
Awesome. This will work out. This will work out. This will work out. Keep saying it to yourself. There is no time, no room for giving up, for hopelessness, or for despair. We are going to fight like hell to save our species and our world, and we're going to keep a positive mindset and positive energy throughout, because our mindset, our positivity directly affects the outcome. Gloom makes doom. Literally. Fuck that. No way. All right, my friends, it's 2024. We don't know how long we have to live, so we live every day like it's our last. Truly. Do that today. Live today like it's your last. And we end every one of these shows with a celebration of life, just something that makes us thrilled to be alive. This week, let us take a look at the city of Paris at night. Truly one of the finest cities in the world, set to some Edith Piaf music for our audio-only listeners.
Non, rien de rien. Non, je ne regrette rien. Ni le bien qu'on m'a fait, ni le mal, tout ça m'est bien égal. Non, rien de rien. Non, je ne regrette rien. C'est payé. J'ai allumé le feu, mes chagrins, mes plaisirs. Je n'ai plus besoin de balayer les amours avec leur trémolo, balayer pour toujours. Je repars à zéro. Non, rien de rien. Regrette rien, ni le bien qu'on m'a fait, ni le mal, tout ça m'est bien égal. Non, rien de rien. Non, je ne regrette rien, car ma vie, car mes jours
Okay, my friends, that is all for this week. Please remember, AI risk is not someone else's problem. It is yours and it is mine. And in the words of the late, great Margaret Mead, never doubt that a small group of thoughtful, committed citizens can change the world. Indeed, it is the only thing that ever has. Those people are you and me. We're going to do it. For humanity, I'm John Sherman. I'll see you right back here next week.